Let's talk about the history of English political parties. This is part 2 of the video on English political parties. And this video will talk about the history of English political parties from 17th to 21st century. And it will also give an explanation about the Tories and the Whigs, the Conservatives and Liberals, the Conservatives and Labour. And it will also talk about the important prime ministers of England. So I must thank Ambika ma'am for supporting me and encouraging me to make this video. So thank you, Ambika ma'am. And now let's delve into the history of English political parties. 1660, a very important year in English history because it was the year when Charles II was restored on the English throne. Up to 1660 was the period of Commonwealth England. England was under Puritan rule and Oliver Cromwell was the Lord Protector of England. With the death of Charles I, monarchy had come to an end in England. So that was quite a long period when England was a protectorate. It was under Puritan rule and it was a commonwealth. Oliver Cromwell had died and his son was not able to control the kingdom anymore. It was not a kingdom, it was a protectorate. The people were very unhappy with the strict disciplinarian system and they sent a letter to Charles II, the son of the dead Charles I. Charles II was living in exile in Europe and the English people, they requested him to return and take over the throne, become the King of England. So he came back and his coming back, the restoration of monarchy, the return of king's rule, that is the restoration which happened in the year 1660. Another important year is 1685. 1685, Charles II, he had died and his brother James II became the King of England. James II was an open Catholic and he was very unpopular among the English people because the English had always had a distrust for Catholics. They disliked Catholics. So they did not want James II to continue ruling over them. So what did they do? They introduced something called the Exclusion Bill. And this was introduced by Anthony Ashley Cooper or the Earl of Shaftesbury. What was the purpose of the Exclusion Bill? The Exclusion Bill had been introduced by Anthony Ashley Cooper or Earl of Shaftesbury in order to prevent Catholics from becoming rulers of England. So you belong to the English royal family, but if you are a practicing Catholic, then you cannot become the king or the queen of England. That was the purpose for introducing the Exclusion Bill. So there was a group of people who supported the Exclusion Bill and they were the Whigs. Another group was there which opposed the Exclusion Bill and they were the Tories. Okay, so the father of the English party system, that title is given to Earl of Shaftesbury because with the introduction of the Exclusion Bill, there were two groups which were formed in England, the Whigs and the Tories. Now, I was telling you about James II being an unpopular ruler. So, again, what did the people of England do? They did not want James II to continue ruling over them. So, they invited William of Orange. Orange is in Holland, Dutch. William of Orange and his wife Mary to come to England and become the rulers of England. Mary was the daughter of James II. William of Orange and Mary, they were both practicing Protestants. So that is why the English people invited them to come back and take over the reins of power. And it was a very peaceful takeover because James II did not put up any rebellion. He did not put up any resistance. And William of Orange and Mary, they became the new rulers of England. And that happened in the year 1688 because it was a peaceful transition of power. That is why that is known as the Glorious Revolution, which happened in the year 1688. So, who are the Tories? In the initial stages, that is, when we look at it in the second half of the 17th century, when the political groups were gradually being formed, the Tories were more in number than the Whigs. The Tories were members of the Anglican or the Church of England or the English Protestant Church. They were mostly landowners, very rich. They owned a lot of land and they were royalists or supporters of kings and queens or supporters of monarchy. Who were the Whigs? The Whigs were lesser in number than the Tories and they were also landowners, but they also had business interests. They had manufacturing units, they had factories. So, along with being landowners, they also were involved in trade. And when you look at their religion, they were mostly dissenters and Puritans. Who are the dissenters? The dissenters were members who were Protestant in belief, but they did not agree with the principles of the Anglican Church or the Church of England. Puritans were very strict Protestants. So both dissenters and Puritans are Protestants, but there are slight differences between the dissenters and the Puritans. The common link between them is both these groups did not conform or did not agree with the principles of the Anglican Church or the Church of England. And the Whigs were supporters of Parliament. They were not supporters of monarchy. So from 1714 to 1784, quite a long period of time, you cannot call this group system as a political group. They were just groups of people, and whenever one of them became a leader, then all these people they would go with him to parliament and they would be given important jobs and postings. And when this person's tenure was over, then these people they would also leave the house, they would also leave the parliament. So each important politician had a group of followers. There was no party organization, no regular party structure, membership, or discipline of any kind. And most of these members of parliament, they were independent. The House of Commons, like the Lok Sabha, our Lok Sabha is their House of Commons. The House of Commons did not have seats for all members. Even today, it does not have seats for all members. The House of Commons, that building, it was destroyed during the Second World War in 1941. And when it was rebuilt also, it followed the traditional structure where the number of seats was inadequate. It could not provide seats or chairs to all the members of parliament. Okay, so who is this person? This person is Robert Walpole. Who is he? The first Prime Minister of England. Okay, so who was the first English Prime Minister? It was Robert Walpole. He was the first English Prime Minister. He was also the Chancellor of the Exchequer and he was the Prime Minister for 20 years. What was his policy? His policy was non-interference. And because of his policy, England was very peaceful and very prosperous. There was great economic growth during the period of Robert Walpole. Plus, he was the person who introduced bribery in politics in England because he did not have any moral ethics in giving money and buying votes during elections. Then another important politician is William Pitt, and he was important leader of the second half of the 18th century, and he was a Tory leader and he was a supporter of imperialism. That is why he is called a imperialist. What is imperialism? That means using your resources in order to control another country and its people, and then take all their resources from there and use it for your own growth, for your own political, economic growth. So, Britain was an imperial country and it had used its resources to control India. India was under the imperial control of Britain until 1947. So this guy, William Pitt, he was a supporter of the policy of imperialism and he wanted to reduce French power in America. America was under the control of the English and the French, and they had a number of wars, and finally the French were driven out and it was under English control. But then the American War of Independence was fought and the English were driven out. So William Pitt, he wanted to reduce French power in America, and that is why he followed a policy of conciliation with the Americans. That means agreeing to their demands, keeping them happy. Okay, now the French Revolution happened in 1789. And what was the impact of the French Revolution on the political parties in England? Let's talk about that. So, in the beginning, when the French Revolution began in 1789, the Tories were against the French Revolution and the Whigs supported the French Revolution. The Tories were against the French Revolution because during the French Revolution, the ordinary French people, they had killed most of the aristocrats or members of the upper class, and they had also killed the king and queen of England. So the Tories, they were supporters of monarchy, they were supporters of the royal family, and that is why they did not support the French Revolution. Then what happened as the French Revolution became more bloody and it realized that it could lead to other movements in other countries, the revolutionary government of France, they offered help to people in other countries. They sort of told them, do you want a revolution in your country? Then we will help you. Do you want men? Do you want machinery? We will help you. So people were looking for a change. And the English government was very worried because they did not want something like the French Revolution happening in their own country. People were unhappy in England, people were unhappy in most of the European countries. And the French were inviting them, if you want help to start a revolution, we will provide you with help. So, what happened was when the revolutionary government of France started offering help for revolution to other countries, the two different groups who were on different sides, they came together, the Tories and the Whigs, and they stood together and they defeated the plan of the revolutionary government of France. Okay. So this led to the first of the French Revolutionary Wars between England and France. The first war was fought in 1794 between England and France. And the Tories and the Whigs, they stood together and they supported the war against France. So basically, what the political parties in England, they were telling the revolutionary government of France was that we don't want your revolution in our country. We do not want that kind of violence and bloodshed in our country. Okay, so in 1794, the first of the French Revolutionary Wars between England and France took place, and England won these naval battles. And during this period, what happened to the political parties? Well, the party structure became better organized during this period. Okay, now another important landmark, that is the 1832 Reform Bill. And the 1832 Reform Bill introduced a lot of changes in the electoral system, in the distribution of boroughs and counties. So, we are concerned only with how it affected political parties in England. So what happened was 1832 Reform Bill. With that, local party organizations were established. And the Whigs had played a very important role in passing the Reform Bill of 1832. So, after the passage of the 1832 Reform Bill, the Tory and Whig names underwent a change. The Tories took the name Conservative and the Whigs took the name Liberal. So 1841 elections were held in England and Robert Peel, he won and he became the PM or the Prime Minister. He was somebody who belonged to the Conservative Party. So he was supported by the landowners. But at the same time, Peel himself was the son of a manufacturer and he supported business interests. So that is a contradiction. He was supported by the Conservative Party, but he himself had interest in business. So he combined both support of the landowners plus interest in business. 1846, you know what happened? The Corn Law was repealed. Now, what is this Corn Law? The Corn Law had been passed in order to protect English corn farmers. And that means corn could not be imported, brought into England from other countries. And this led to a problem in England because the price of corn began to increase. So poor people did not have anything to eat. And they demanded that the corn law should be repealed. If the corn law is repealed, corn will come from other countries and the price will go up. Another thing was rise in wages of factory workers. The factory workers were getting good pay. They were getting good wages. They were getting good salary. Okay. So on one side, you have supporters of the Corn Law. On the other side, you have Anti-Corn Law League. The Anti-Corn Law League was supported by the Whigs. They did not like the wages of factory workers increasing because most of these Whigs, they were factory owners. They had their own companies, manufacturing companies. So whatever profit they made, from that profit, they will have to pay salary of the workers. So when the wages or the salary of the workers was increasing, their profit was going down. That is why they did not want rise in wages. And they wanted the Corn Law to be repealed. Okay, this is the Anti-Corn Law League. Supporters of the Corn Law, they were Tories. Supporters of the Anti-Corn Law, they were the Whigs. Another important event that happened was the potato famine. The potato famine was something that happened in Ireland and it was from 1845 to 1846. So it's a very important historical event which had a lot of problematic consequences because this led to a lot of people leaving Ireland and going to America. The famine was so severe that people in Ireland did not have anything to eat. And this naturally affected the English people also. So Robert Peel, when he saw that the situation was going out of control, people were starving, people did not have anything to eat, so he repealed the Corn Law. And his own party, the Conservatives or the Tories, they opposed him. They did not like his action of repealing the Corn Law. Repeal means to stop something, to push back something, something that has become a law, you are taking it back, you are removing it. And now again, English politics was divided into two groups in the 19th century. The supporters of the landowners, they were known as the conservatives. And the supporters of the businessmen or the factory owners or free trade, they were known as the liberals. Now coming to the political situation in the second half of the 19th century. So who are the conservatives? Property or landowners. Who are the liberals? Salary or wage earners. Political situation in the early 20th century. The Liberal Party, it said that it is going to represent the salary or wage earners. But then, over a period of time, it was felt that the Liberal Party was not satisfactorily representing the problems of the salary or wage earners. And that is why another party emerged, and that is the Labour Party. And this Labour Party, it represented all workers. So soon the liberals, they lost their importance, and the conservatives and the Labour Party became most powerful in England. Okay. Now, important prime ministers, there is a long list of prime ministers: Gladstone and Peel, then Robert Peel, Gladstone, Robert Walpole, all these people. But we'll talk about just two of them. Winston Churchill, he was an imperialist, but he was the war prime minister. That means during the Second World War, when England was going through a very tough situation, at that point of time, he was the prime minister, and his actions, his speech was responsible for English victory during the Second World War. But when the elections were held immediately after the war, he lost the elections because he was somebody who was suited to become the Prime Minister of England during the war. That is why he is called a war Prime Minister. When peace returned, he lost the elections. Another important prime minister is Clement Attlee, and this man, this prime minister, this English prime minister was responsible for expediting India's freedom from the British. That means he increased the speed at which India got freedom from Britain. If it was Winston Churchill, then we would not have got freedom immediately after the Second World War. It would have taken a longer time. But Clement Attlee was the person who increased the speed of the process of India getting its freedom from Britain. Let's look at how many political parties are there in England today. So, see, the questions that you face during the exam will focus only on political parties, the history of political parties, but maybe you could get brownie points, extra points if you write about this also. Political parties in England today, you could put it as a subheading, underline it, and then list all these parties. And that will convey the impression to the teacher who is correcting that you are in touch with what is happening in the world. And that will probably fetch you good marks. So, political parties in England today: the Conservatives, the Labour Party, Liberal Democrats, Independents, Green Party, Scottish National Party, the Plaid Cymru of Wales, DUP, and Sinn Féin of Northern Ireland. So, these are the political parties in England today. Thank you and all the best for your exams.